just a very quick word for those of you who are new to Wheel and Anchor webinars. There's an opportunity to get any questions that you have answered at the end of the webinar. There'll be a Q&A session, and you can make any place any questions that you have either in the chat box or in the Q&A box. If you don't see those right away, you'll find them either by scrolling around with your mouse, either to the top and bottom of the screen. And as I say, we'll address all of the questions then. So we're going to get started. Thanks, everybody, for coming out today. A couple of words about Wheel and Anchor. What are we all about? Who are we? What is this Wheel and Anchor thing for those of you who have not traveled with us before or attended one of our webinars? So we are a community of travelers from all across Canada. And what I found is that it really makes a difference, the dynamic of the group. And this is what's important for us to have an experience that is very different than you'll find on sort of an organized, on an ordinary organized group tour. So the experience that we strive for is quite different, more dynamic. You can get a sense from a few of the photos here of some of our members, all the smiling faces, the fun that we have along the way. And that really is what the essence of Wheel and Anchor is all about. And inside of that, we have a personal mission to make sure that everybody becomes well-traveled and well-connected. And when we say well-traveled, it is about taking the time on a trip, both inside the structured portion of an itinerary, but also the free time, which is a real hallmark for us, is giving you the time to explore on your own, again, inside of this organized structure, because a lot of the magic moments that happen that you'll remember from travel are when you go and explore and do stuff on your own. And so that's part of being well-traveled. And well-connected is, again, the idea of connecting to your fellow members, connecting to people that you meet along the way, your host. We have a wonderful group of hosts that go along on all of our trips and make sure that you have an amazing time. So those are the core sort of philosophies of Wheel and Anchor. All of that could only be possible with a growing team of very dedicated professionals. So by way of quick introduction, my name is Gordon Drager. I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor. I curate all of the programs here, but of course, getting them organized and out to our membership, and then getting people signed up and questions answered is quite a colossal effort. And so, as I say, I have an amazing group of people. The most important for you, our members, is probably Paula Sarnik. Paula's joined me on the webinar today.
Hello.
Hi there, Paula. Good morning. Paula is our lead trip specialist. She's there to ensure that she's the one on the other end of the phone, if you will, who will answer questions about your trip and get you all excited and get you signed up for this and other amazing experiences that we have to offer here at Wheel and Anchor. So today, we're going to take you on a tour on our newest LiveAway program. I'm going to explain in a moment what LiveAways are. Again, it'll be repetitive for those of you who are familiar with us already. And all about this island of Mallorca. You might have heard of it. Maybe you've been there before. Maybe you know something about it, or you've heard of people going there. It's not typically a huge destination on Canadians' radar screen, but I really think it should be. And I'm going to explain to you all about that as we go forward. First of all, let's talk for a moment about LiveAways. This is an idea that we came up with, and the idea of in essence, at the purest essence of what it is, it's a longer stay type trip where you stay in one place for a longer period of time. That in and of itself is not new, but over the course of the pandemic, when we had a lot of free time on our hands, I did quite a bit of thinking about, what how could you devise a trip where you could really get an intense understanding of a place, have a relaxing time, have a combination between being able to do stuff of your own choosing, as well as organize activities with a group, but also have the benefit of free time to explore on your own, yet with that group dynamic that you've got, somebody to go out for dinner with in the end of the day, other people that you meet along, or maybe you travel with friends. And that's really some of the core ideas behind a LiveAway. We operate them at the moment mostly in the inclement weather months back home, so typically between January and about April. Great time to get away for an extended period of time. And the idea was also sparked because I hear more and more feedback from people who are just a little bit more averse about traveling to some of the typical sun destinations down south for various reasons that I'm not going to get into. I don't think that needs any commentary from me because there are so many great places around the world where you could spend part of the winter. We do live-aways both in more warm and tropical destinations, like for example in Thailand and in Bali, and we have some new ones coming up in the tropical category. But a lot of our members from Canada really appreciate our so-called temperate live-aways. So these are ones that we do in the Mediterranean or in the central South Atlantic, actually the central Atlantic, like for example Madeira, which is an island off of the coast of Africa, as well as the Canary Islands. We just launched this year. Cyprus, Malta. These are some of the live-away destinations that we currently offer in temperate climate. So meaning that the weather is, typically 15 to 20, 23, 24 degrees during these months, depending on the destination. So it's a wonderful climate to be spending a longer period of time with. As I say, some of the other core aspects of our live-aways are the fact that we give you an activity credit, so you don't have a prescribed set of excursions, but rather we give you a bunch of ideas. We've often, in most cases, handpicked the guides and the experience, and you can then choose based on how busy you want to be or how much stuff you want to do on your own. Again, the beauty of a live-away is it's not like an ordinary trip where you have a prescribed itinerary that you have to follow. You can choose to do as much as you want. You can go off and do excursions or simply explore on your own. In fact, a lot of our members do, and we encourage that. That's part of the fun of exploration on a live-away type trip. So let's talk for a minute about Mallorca. First of all, where is Mallorca? Looking at the inset map down here, it is in the western part of the Mediterranean, immediately south of roughly Barcelona in Spain, if you know the roughly the geography of Spain. This is where Mallorca is here. It's part of the so-called Balearic Islands, which also comprise Menorca, as well as Ibiza are the most famous of those islands. And this whole area is quite I wouldn't call it a winter getaway, although it is becoming more and more a winter getaway for Europeans, right? Let's face it, Mallorca is frequented predominantly by British tourists, German tourists. There are flights between the UK and Germany, for example, not to mention lots of other places around Europe. Literally many, many flights a day that go back and forth to Mallorca. It is again, a mild climate at winter. It's not as warm, for example, as the Canary Islands. The temperatures in March when we're planning to go typically will range in the high teens to low 20s. Again, also depending on where you are on the island. It's a little cooler up in the mountains than, for example, on the south side, on the beach side of the island, although there are beaches everywhere around the island. And so it's becoming more and more popular. In fact, March is pretty much when things get going. A lot of the island is kind of quiet with the exception of the capital during January and February. And in March, things start to come into bloom. It's really like spring for them already, early March. So it's a wonderful time to go, and you don't have the tourist hordes that Mallorca is famous for that already begin as early as May. Or even in April at Easter is kind of when it starts to get going, and goes all the way through sort of till the end of October. So we are going in March. It's a great time to get away from Canada, but it's also a beautiful time to visit Mallorca. And we are going to be staying. This live-away is a little bit different than some of our other live-aways. I decided to have us be in 2 locations for 1 week each. Mallorca as an island, sort of from one side to the other, you could drive in a little better than an hour. So the capital city, which is here, Palma de Mallorca, which is where we fly into, you could access pretty much any point on the island in, maybe the exception of Cap de Formentor up here in about an hour and a bit. So you could simply stay in one place. But we wanted to create a bit more of a luxurious experience here and not have the longer drives of having to be sort of 2 hours of driving in order to see a bunch of things and spend sort of a good chunk of the day on the road. That's why we split it into two parts. The first week we're going to be staying up here, just to the west of Palma, in the foothills. Well, not really in the foothills, really right amongst the Tramontana Mountains, at an incredible spot I'm going to share with you just in a moment. This is really the spot we picked for the first week is absolutely incredible. It sets a new precedent for Wheel and Anchor. The second week, we're going to be here at a beach at so-called Puerto de Pollença, which is here at the very sort of northeastern bit of the island, a wonderful seaside location on the beach, with some beautiful scenery along the Cap de Formentor. As you see, there's this cape, and a great town with lots of little restaurants, and access to sort of this eastern side of the island where we have a number of different excursions on offer. So that's sort of the lay of the land of Mallorca, to give you a little bit of a sense of what we're doing. I'll note down here as well, one of our excursions is to Cabrera Archipelago, which you see here down on the southern end of the map. And this, from our accommodation here down to where we would depart for Cabrera, is probably, it's about an hour's drive. So that's about as far as we would go overland on most of our excursions. Let's get right into the program. First of all, as I mentioned, 2 weeks where we're staying, and I'm really, really excited to announce that we're going to be staying for one of the first times in a luxury hotel of the world, this incredible castle, which I have found that sits at the base of well, not quite at the base of the second highest mountain on Mallorca, on a huge private estate. And let's see if this works. I'm going to try and share this video I took that tells you a little bit about it. So let's see if this works. This is the first time I'm trying this. Behind me is the spectacular Castel Son Claret. This is a 15th century estate, one of the oldest on the island of Mallorca, that has been beautifully restored to one of the leading hotels of the world. It is surrounded by incredible nature, sitting on about 100 hectares of land in some of the highest peaks of the island, and offers a truly remarkable stay. And I'm delighted that this will be the newest part of our LiveAway program at Wheel and Anchor. Okay, great. So behind me is the spectacular. How do we go? So that's just a quick little intro about Castel Son Claret that I took while I was there. I was literally just visiting the island about 3 weeks ago, and I literally stumbled upon this property. It's a long story, but that's often how it works with me. I found this wonderful castle, and I was able to have a meeting with the general manager, and strike a pretty darn good deal for a hotel that otherwise is well in excess of $1,000 a night in the peak season. But they were keen to and have our Wheel and Anchor members come along at the beginning of their season, and so I'm delighted. This is really a premium property, and as I say, to spend a week there is pure bliss. We have a few different categories of rooms available. Our pricing based on the lead-in category, but all of the rooms are. This is a 5-star superior hotel. There's no question about it. So for the first week, we will be there at Castel Son Claret. The second week, as I mentioned on the map, we're going to move to the west coast of the island. We're going to move to the lovely seaside resort of Puerto de Pollença. We're staying here in a hotel that is not quite as luxurious as the Castel Son Claret. And so I want to emphasize that if I had my choice, we would come here first and then end on the 5-star hotel. But just given the opening times of the hotels, and the arrangements we are able to juggle, we are doing it in this order. But the benefit to this part is that you are a week later in March. The weather will have warmed up a bit more. The sea will be swimmable if you are somebody that likes cooler water. In March, the Mediterranean around here. The beach on which the Isla d'Or is located is a fairly shallow beach, but the water temperature that time of the year is probably 16, 17 degrees. Maybe a bit too cool for most, but there is, of course, a wonderful pool on the premises as well, and a lovely terrace overlooking the bay. You can get a sense of the backdrop here. There's a wonderful seaside promenade that leads about a 15-minute walk into the center of Puerto de Pollença. Very comfortable and charming rooms here. We have both regular rooms as well as upgraded sea view rooms with balconies. It's a super comfy stay, and again, an excellent quality hotel. Not quite the echelon of the Castel Saint Claret, but I think overall very high quality accommodations. Not that we don't always offer good quality accommodations, but this trip is particularly exciting as far as the hotels. I already have some of our hosts clamoring to host this first trip to Mallorca. Of course, on a LiveAway program, we give you a bunch of different idea of excursions. We have an amazing chap, amazing local guide who I met there, and who originally reigns from the island, hails from the island, I should say. He's a friend of the King of Spain, believe it or not. He doesn't tout that fact too much, but he really is somebody that has been working around tourism and around hosting people on the island for as long as I've been in travel, well over 30 years. And so we have a great host to show us beyond the touristic sort of hype of the island. And the island has some, incredibly popular spots and destinations. As I say, most Europeans head there for the beach in the season that begins from sort of April, May through until September, October. But there's a lot of cultural aspects to Mallorca that go overlooked by some of the sort of the regular tourists that visit Mallorca. So just touching on a few of the things that we'll do while we're in Mallorca. You can't go there without visiting the port of Sawyer. What's interesting thing about Mallorca is that back in the days when it was originally settled, the island was at threat of attacks by pirates. And so all of the principal towns are actually set back by 3, 4, 5, 6 kilometers from the coast. So Sawyer, which is a wonderfully restored historic town, probably the most visited on the island, is set back in a valley about 5 kilometers from the port of Sawyer, which is a beautifully little naturally protected harbor. And all of just like where we're staying on the second half of the trip, Porto Pollença is also the port part of the city, which is actually set back. And again, this is a very interesting history that we'll take a deeper dive into when we get to Mallorca. Sawyer is connected to Palma de Mallorca by a beautiful vintage train. Again, a big highlight. It luckily just begins service in March, so timing is perfect for us. So we'll do a trip that includes a wonderful scenic train tour through the Tramontana Mountains between Palma and Sawyer. We'll visit the town, we'll visit the port, and all in all have a lovely day. We can't visit Mallorca without going around and touring some of the beaches, regardless if you want to actually swim or not. Just seeing these picturesque beaches. And again, when I was there last month, or I should say earlier this month, I was able to visit a few of these spots. And again, the coastline is absolutely breathtaking. So we're going to take you around, showing you some of these picturesque coves, maybe enough for a selfie, maybe a dip in the water for those who are brave, and always a terrific local lunch to be enjoyed at one of the great restaurants we've chosen together with our local partners over there. Cap Formentor is that peninsula that I showed you on the map at the very beginning at the northeastern part of the island. This is a cycling haven. So for those, if any of you happen to be avid cyclists, Mallorca is descended upon by cyclists from all over Europe and actually the whole world. Typically later in the season, but March is a great time to go cycling in the Cap Formentor. It's not an easy one. This is one for avid cyclists, but nevertheless, the views are breathtaking. You've got the turquoise waters of the Mediterranean at the base of these incredible limestone cliffs. There's a lighthouse that we'll visit at Cap Formentor, and we'll pop into the tourist town of Alcudia as well, which also has a wonderful old medieval portion to it. Is a great place to visit. As I mentioned at the outset as well, we'll also have the opportunity, we'll offer an excursion by boat to the archipelago of Cabrera to the south of Mallorca. And we will spend at least one day, but we'll have an organized trip. And I apologize, there's a typo on the word here, to visit the capital city of Palma de Mallorca. The city has been beautifully restored and kept over the years. Remember, Mallorca has really become the destination for sort of the the wealthier side of European travelers. I mean, the interesting thing is it offers something for everybody. But you'll see when you visit Mallorca and when you visit some of these more hidden towns like Sawyer, like Dea, like Valdemosa. There's many of them, in the capital city itself, Palma de Mallorca, which has a incredible downtown. So we'll have a good half a day to enjoy the city on our own. For those that want to hang around, it's easy to make your way back to the hotel, which is about a 25 or 30-minute drive away. I mentioned the Tramontana Mountains. They rise up over 2,000 meters, and in fact, the one that's by the hotel is the second highest on the island. Amongst these mountains, you have some very picturesque villages, in particular Day and Valdemosa, which are less than half an hour away from the Castel Sant Claret, easily accessible. We'll go in and around and explore some of these to learn a little bit about the settlement of this island, and again, how these towns evolved and what happens today. Because what's interesting about Mallorca is that it has become almost entirely dependent on tourism. And although you see these, beautiful terraced areas here, which were previously used for agriculture, local agriculture largely has disappeared, with the exception of some vineyards. You can still get some amazing Mallorcan wines, and a few local fruits and vegetables, but largely their whole economy has gone towards tourism, which is really quite interesting and quite telling. That being said, as well, just as any of Spain's sort of outer lying regions, and again, I was just talking about the Canary Islands 2 days ago. Mallorca has its own array of tastes and flavors. And so we'll go on a tapas tasting trip together with our local guide. And again, he's lived all his life on the island, knows some of the best spots to go around and taste some of the dishes that, again, a lot of us aren't familiar with. We all know the concept of tapas, but the two true tapas dishes that are again that originate from this island will be what we get to explore. Paella doesn't originate from Mallorca. It actually comes from the mainland of Spain, specifically the area around Valencia. But it is nevertheless a dish that is always enjoyed by all. It's actually not that difficult to make. Well, I say that, but you're going to have to try your hand at it at our paella making class, because it's a really a fun dish to make. And it tastes absolutely exquisite. That is the essence of Spain right there. Of course, as I mentioned, Mallorca does have wine production. I tasted some of the wines that are there. They have some classic varieties that we're familiar with, as well as some ones that you are less familiar. And this is what I always love on visiting these islands, is that you get to try wines that you simply will not find at home, because they're very small production vineyards. We'll hear a little bit about life as it has evolved on the islands from the family, from the local vineyard that we'll visit. We'll taste some of these specialties along with a glass of wine and look out over this rather amazing countryside, all in and around the Castel Sant Claret. On the southeast corner of the island, there is one of the most incredible sights of Mallorca, which is this incredible these underground caverns called the Drac Caves. And I did not get a chance to get in here when I was on my short visit in Mallorca, but everybody I spoke to said this is an absolute must-see. And you visit caves from time to time on other trips, but this one is the picture just barely does it justice. There's a boat ride that you take underground in these Drac Caves. And they also play music, and there's a whole bunch of things that go on all underground. A must visit. And for those of you that like caves, again, the beauty is that we have a bunch of different excursions on offer, and there's also many other things to choose from that you can do at your own speed. So that gives you an overview of what we're up to in Mallorca. Again, there's lots here on the island. If it piques your interest, I encourage you to go and Google Mallorca, things to do, things to see, and consider joining us for this very sumptuous trip that we're going to be doing next year in March. Pricing shown here, you'll note this is a little higher than our other liveaways, largely because we are staying in this luxury hotel of the world, the Castel Son Claret. We, again, have some very fine accommodations here. We've included for $1,000 of activity credit on this program, which I think is important as well. Again, this is a higher end destination in Europe. So prices of things are, a little bit more than, for example, compared to the Canary Islands or Madeira. But when you get there and you see the scenery and you see the coastline, you will totally understand why. And it is there's worth those extra dollars. So that's what this program is all about. A list of all the inclusions and all the other details, of course, in your program itinerary. You only have to take into consideration airfare and cancellation and medical insurance on top of that. Both of those things we can give you a hand with if you decide you want to join us. And if you sign up early, we made a deal with the Hotel Iador in Puerto de Pollença that we can, for those who book early, we can upgrade you to sea view rooms, either frontal or side sea view rooms there, which obviously would be a nice bonus to be able to look out over the beautiful waters of Mallorca. So time to answer any questions that you may have about the program. Of course, if you have a question subsequently or something specific that is on your mind to have you say, yes, I'm ready to join, then please drop a note to Paula. But otherwise, Paula, I'll take some questions now from our members about what to expect on it's a great shot. One of the many coastline shots. Again, I wish I could show you 100 slides of Mallorca because the scenery is truly, truly, truly amazing on this island. Paula, any questions that have come in?
Yes, I've got a question here with regards to combinations.
Yes.
And so there are definitely Cyprus. I believe this lines up with the
Yes.
latter 2 weeks of Cyprus, but
Correct.
also on the front end. Do you have that off the top? I'm just looking it up right
I
now.
Yeah, Cyprus, and I think at the beginning it may even align with Madeira. So
It does.
yeah, so
Yes.
you could combine Madeira and this program. The Canary Islands, I think, overlaps with this. No, the Canary Islands is earlier now. We moved it to January. So basically, Madeira and Cyprus are the most obvious choices if you decided you want to. A lot of our members will combine live away programs because they're like, 2 weeks isn't enough. I want to go away for 4 or even 6. So if you haven't traveled to either Cyprus or Madeira, then they would make great combos
Yeah.
together in the program.
Malta and Sicily also on the back end, so you could combine all three as well
There
and
you
make
go.
a good month of it. So there's the sky is the limit, and in terms of what your
Yeah.
imagination comes to, I've had a variety of unique combinations members have requested that I didn't even necessarily
Yeah.
pick out lately. So just depends where around the world you want to connect, but we've got
Absolutely.
options.
Absolutely. And of course, there's always the option to do stuff on your own as well. I mean, you could theoretically, after this trip, you could take the ferry to the mainland in Spain and spend some time there. I mean, there's a number of different ways, but I think that this trip in and of itself will be quite the amazing experience.
Fabulous. Can you touch on the activity level of the excursions as well that are being offered? I know with this members get to customize and but there's always a range.
Yep. There's
Maybe
a range. The activity levels here would pretty much fall into our basic level. In other words, there is there will be the option to do some hikes. I didn't really mention those today. And so what I encourage members to do is that, if you are a cyclist or you are a hiker, is again, do some Googling, do some self-research on Mallorca at what the options are. Because I know that we often have members whose wishes go beyond what we're able to offer to the general membership. But the point being, Paula, to your question, to our members' question, most of the excursions on this trip are fairly easy. Walking is the main requirement. You need to be able to walk because downtown Palma is accessible only on foot, as is some of these other towns and villages that we're going to visit around Mallorca.
Fabulous. Kim has a question here asking if this is close to Florence. Kim, I'm going to make the assumption that you meant in terms of proximity of dates, and unfortunately not. There's
No,
about a 4-week gap
yeah.
um,
We won't go to
there.
Florence until April because it's a little bit early in March yet. So yeah,
Yeah, if
it's
you meant something else, you can shoot me a message here in chat or call or email. I can
fantastic.
make sure. But
Okay,
yeah,
good.
that's all
Did
the
we get all the
answers
questions?
at the moment
All right,
so
then we must
far.
have done a good job. So, but do consider joining us. And as I mentioned, details in the program itinerary. Please have a read through that, as well as the additional information document that has lots of other details, as well as the links to the hotels themselves. You can also just, as I say, just Google them right off of this webinar and check it out. This is wow. This is going to be one of the best liveaways that we've ever done. I'm very, very excited about it. Again, drop us a note if you're interested in joining or if you have any more questions. Paula's contacts details are there as usual. I appreciate you taking the time to join us on the webinar. We have a bit of a pause from our live webinars for the next couple of weeks as I'm on a research mission across Central Asia with limited internet access for some time, but we will be releasing some exciting new programs in the not too distant future. Stay tuned for those. Read our newsletter every Saturday. And once again, thanks for joining us. And I hope to catch up with you all very, very soon. Take care. Have a great rest of the day.